Hey everyone, welcome to Crypto Clarity. My name is Sahil, and this is the channel where we talk all about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. In today's video, we are continuing our series of interviews with people who are bringing so much value in this space. The point of this series is to bring value to you and let you understand all the background, the details, and how these products are being developed in the crypto space. This is not just about some bots behind the scenes, this is about people. People are building these products and companies around cryptocurrencies as a technology. So this is the point of the series that we are continuing. We have had other guests as well, so if you want to check that out as well, I will link that in the description. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Our guest today is Jeff Yew, who is a Bitcoiner from 2013 and has been building different products like Binance Australia and Monochrome Asset Fund recently as well. Recently, Monochrome Asset Fund released the Bitcoin Spot ETF, which is one of its kind in Australia. If you are someone who is looking to get into Bitcoin ETFs and other assets coming in the future as well, then this video is for you, especially if you are based in Australia. Obviously, there is no financial advice in this video, so if you need any financial help, talk to a financial advisor because this video is for educational purpose only. Without wasting any time, let's get right into it. Hey Jeff, thanks for joining Crypto Clarity. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks, Sahil. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure to see you on so many places right now. I've been seeing you all over the Australian TV right now, and it's great to bring you on for the audience that we have on Crypto Clarity to learn more about Monochrome and Spot ETFs in this space right now.
Cool. Yeah, great. Good to be here, and happy to help.
Yeah, no, that's where we want to start, right? Like we want to get into the meat of it and know a bit about yourself and how you got into this monochrome ETF space and how it all started for you in the Bitcoin orange pill space.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a couple. It's actually more than a decade now. I'm surprised that how fast time has passed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy, right? It's and especially in this space where it moves like at lightning speed, even a couple of weeks feel like a couple of months already.
yeah, certainly.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll just like to know more about your background. I know that you were part of Binance co-founding team here in Australia as well. So, how your journey has been as well, and uh, what's the current thing that we are seeing, for your monochrome ETF.
Yes, sure. So today I run Monochrome. So Monochrome is an asset management company that specializes in crypto regulated products like Bitcoin ETFs. So we have a live Bitcoin ETF that's traded now in a stock exchange here in Australia called CBOE Australia.
Okay.
CBOE Australia is the Australian arm of the Chicago Board of Options Exchange based in the US. And our ETF is called the Monochrome Bitcoin ETF
Yeah.
under the ticker IBTC. Started off my journey in this space in 2013. That's when I first heard about Bitcoin. Went through the rabbit hole, um, learned a lot about the protocol on Reddit and Bitcoin Talk. Back
Yeah.
then there were many resources and podcasts like today.
Yeah.
I started doing stuff, giving back into the space. I want to do something for Bitcoin, and that's sort of where I came across a startup that I joined, and that startup later on got an investment from Binance,
Yeah.
and I had the idea of starting an exchange, so I started Binance Australia here.
Oh,
I
nice.
ran it for a while as a CEO, and then left the business. Done with the crypto exchange space for a bit,
Yeah.
because that regulation side of things is very unclear.
Yeah.
It's for public knowledge that I left Binance because of that disagreement and how compliance and regulations are treated in that space. It's not really anyone's fault because
Yeah.
crypto exchanges in Australia are still unregulated.
Yeah.
So after leaving Binance, I decided that I want to do something in the institutional space to really sort of have Bitcoin being utilized, in more regulated products in a more structured way. And the Bitcoin ETF seems to be something that was popping up,
Hmm.
conversations back then.
Yeah.
And we set up this mission is like we want to create a real proper Bitcoin ETF in Australia. And that's what we did. We 3 years later, we have the Bitcoin ETF trading live, and it's the only one in the country that directly holds Bitcoin, by the way, and
Yeah.
it's cool. Yeah.
And I've been following that journey as well, since I've been in this space. I've obviously been recent, like last 4 years, but the amount of, unclarity in this space, where, regulation is not giving you enough, and it's harder for investors to jump into an, investment like Bitcoin because it's obviously really volatile for people. But with, your work in this space, it's obviously becoming easier for people to get into spot Bitcoin ETF directly, right?
Yeah, so I've seen both sides, right? I've seen this sort of crypto exchange area where things are unregulated. It's in
Yeah,
a gray area, so providers can offer a wider range of products, wider range of coins, but that will slowly change when regulations get introduced. So in the regulated space, it's different. It's different. It's like it starts from very little and limited products that we can do. So we have the Monochrome Bitcoin ETF scheme live. And you also have the Monochrome Ethereum ETF coming up as well. So
nice.
slowly you can see that there is a convergence of the number of provide services
Assets you
that
can, yeah,
regulated crypto products can offer will continue to grow. And when regulation get introduced, then the offerings of unregulated players would decrease. So I'm really interested to see whether it's a convergence and whether that
yeah.
happens and what it means for the industry.
Yeah, that's the real adoption, I think, where, it's crossing the chasm for people where, Bitcoin becomes legitimate and, this is an asset class which is fastest growing in history. So you have been part of it and you would know already about it.
Yeah, that's right. And we're doing this because we believe in the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We didn't start to believe in Bitcoin because we're doing this. It's the other way
Hmm.
around. So it's very important for investors to sort of see the difference of like, there will be continued big traditional players that want to enter the crypto space. Like they might get it right, they might get it wrong, they might stumble. Like
Yeah.
it's a learning process. We know that
Learning process for everyone.
you have to go through at least a few cycles, to really understand and condition yourself to how things are run in this
Yeah.
space and sort of what's trend, what's signal, what's noise, and really to make sure that you don't mess up
Yeah.
in terms of where the social influences which finance people have. So we like to sort of work together with them, instead of trying to work against them
Yeah.
to make the space more accessible and also in a more sustainable way as well. I guess I think there is a convergence of TradFi and crypto players in the market. I think
Yeah.
a lot of interest from the traditional markets is really from a commercial a revenue standpoint, is seeing how much money can be made because the
Yeah.
interest in its asset class. Whereas we come from a more ethos and philosophical base that we
Philosophical
believe
base.
Bitcoin is important. We believe this is an asset class that's worth maturing and growing for the benefit of the next billion
Yeah.
adopters of this asset class.
And yeah, that's the difference that you will need for someone to, really believe in the product and then giving it out to audience then rather than just giving it out. I think I've seen a few other ETFs as well in this space. We have had news previously in Australia that okay, there were ETFs launches, but I got to know that they were not like the real ones, the like indirect or direct. So what do you see the difference there between monochrome ETF and other ETFs that are already available?
Yeah, sure. So there are three Bitcoin ETFs in Australia. Only one directly holds Bitcoin. That is the Monochrome Bitcoin ETF, which
Mm.
is the ticker is IBTC. Australia, we're not the first Bitcoin type ETF in the
Yeah.
country. There were a product that was out in the market that uses what we call a retail feeding to a retail wholesale feeder fund. And
Okay.
then the VanEck one that just came out not long ago, it's a retail offshore feeder. I don't know why they did that, but a Bitcoin ETF should be directly holding the
Yeah.
Bitcoin. That's how all the Bitcoin ETFs in the US, Canada, Hong Kong are structured. But the problem is that everyone's marketed like the same thing.
Yeah.
But very important distinction for retail investors is to understand that these details are only made known in the PDS. It's hidden. It's not really made known in the marketing of this fund. So it's very important that you guys, really read the product disclosures
Yeah.
before investing, as everyone should. And the reason why importance of a directly held Bitcoin ETF is because if you're directly holding, you have to apply for a license revision called crypto assets from ASIC, which is the
Okay.
Australian Securities and
Yeah.
Investment Commission, to offer that directly in the retail fund. If other of this sort of loophole bypassing way of building Bitcoin ETFs, they do not need to adhere to those rules and regulations
True.
specific to crypto. They rely on a more generic managed fund framework that do not have the sort of full deep dive into crypto-centric custody risks, crypto-centric operational risks,
Yeah.
transfers on-chain, off-chain. Even the experience of the manager within digital assets is very important for the regulator.
Hmm.
So I think there's two types of products in the market that you can distinguish is the direct and the indirect Bitcoin ETF. The Monochrome Bitcoin ETF is a direct Bitcoin ETF because it holds Bitcoin in the ETF. The
Yeah.
other products hold shares in some other financial instruments that get exposure to Bitcoin. That's different. So the regulatory
Okay.
position is that it's not a crypto ETF. That's why it doesn't need to hold a crypto license because
Hmm.
it only holds shares in another managed fund. But I think that's
Indirect.
fundamentally misleading for investors that are looking at these products and viewing that like they are the same, like the other Bitcoin ETFs out there.
Exactly.
Whether it's the Monochrome one or the US ones, a Bitcoin ETF should directly hold Bitcoin. Period.
Exactly. And I think that's come down to the point of, self-custody and custody onshore as well. That happened, I think, with FTX when FTX went bust, there was the custody issue, especially in Australia. They were holding it in different places. So, there were so many risks related to it for a regular investor, and then they didn't know about it because, it was in the final details of the contracts. So obviously it's thing that people need to look, especially if you're in Australia. I think you would need it to be onshore, right?
Yeah, crypto is new. So in terms of like custody providers, there's not actually a crypto custody licensing framework in Australia. So how the only way to get a crypto custody appointed is to use a licensed digital custodians that's based in what ASIC views as regulatory equivalence in a regulatory equivalent jurisdiction,
Yeah,
like the US, for example, and they have to go through a rigorous process to prove that they meet the Australian local custody standards and also
standards.
insurance standards. We use Gemini for custody,
Okay.
and Gemini is one of the international big crypto custodians that has gone through the process with the Australian regulator to make sure that they comply with local rules and regulation,
Yeah.
and that's how we get them to work with us. Feeder funds are different. Feeder funds operate in more sort of light touch regulatory structure because they don't need to adhere to the crypto-centric framework for these products. They
Yeah.
offer it under a more managed fund license, very generic. So it's very important to distinguish between the difference between a direct and an indirect Bitcoin ETF for that reason. Custody is
Yeah.
important, like.
Yeah, exactly. And in that way, I've seen you also tweeting about the inflows in the launch, after the launch of your ETF. It was a big event. I saw the images as well. Everyone, was enjoying that event. And obviously it's a, achievement for everyone who have worked with you in that team to bring that out for people in Australia, especially. So how does that feel and how has the response been?
Yeah. So we've seen a lot of self-directed retail buyers. For
Hmm.
all Bitcoin ETFs, they're the same at the moment. There's not really any advice flows coming to the asset class because these things take time. The independent
Yeah.
financial advisor flows would probably be, 3 6 months away before we see any sort of real movement in that space.
Yeah.
So we're patient. We've been building this product for 3 years. We
Yeah.
we know exactly how, the whole thing works and in terms of how distribution, how we stage it, and things like that.
Exactly.
So we're seeing that even in terms of the self-directed retail volume, we do see a lot of more bigger chunk sizes in
Hmm.
IBTC versus some of the other feeder funds.
Yeah.
Like the feeder funds volume are much bigger, but the average ticket sizes might be smaller.
Hmm.
Whereas the Monochrome Bitcoin ETF has a higher number of big size trades. I mean,
Nice.
if I were to take a guess, it would probably be because like if someone's actually looking at this in a serious manner, they want to invest in the right kind of Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah.
They do not want a feeder fund that do not follow the rules for crypto ETFs in Australia that is set
Exactly.
to protect investors. So I think it's important to highlight the difference. Ultimately, it's nothing wrong with feeder funds.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that people need to watch for is what they are disclosing in their product, and what they're marketing could sometimes be a bit different, and
Yeah.
just to be aware that the final barrier, it's really in the disclosure document, because they've made it clear it's a feeder fund,
Yeah.
and people need to know if they're buying a feeder fund or not. If they're
Exactly.
happy with that, that's perfect. But the last thing you want is it's a way for retail investors realizing 6 months, 12 months later that they wouldn't have bought the product if they knew it wasn't the real thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's in the disclaimers usually. So yeah, I think that's obviously everyone's and their financial advisor's duty to, let them know. Again, on that part of the side, I want to know your understanding of the sentiment that has happened, that has changed in Australia recently. Is there, much difference after these regulations and, a bit of clarity in there?
Yeah, so there's two parts of it. So the one part is that the ETF flow is capturing a lot of new flows to crypto, people that wouldn't otherwise have invested in crypto if they're only offered on unregulated platforms like crypto
Yeah,
exchanges here in Australia at the moment. They're waiting for a proper, safe, regulated, and familiar way for them to invest.
yeah,
And also we're seeing a wave of investors that are natively crypto realizing the benefits of a Bitcoin ETF, because in a Bitcoin ETF, um, it's a diversified way for them to hold their keys, instead
yeah,
of holding it on a crypto exchange that is uninsured, unregulated. If you're not talking about cold storage here, we're talking about just holding it on a platform.
yeah,
If they find it's actually safer to do it in a ETF, because
ETF.
there's proper licensing, insurance, etc. You pay a management fee here in the ETF.
Yeah.
For wholesale and institutional investors, there is negotiable rebates that we can offer based on the volume. But in the end of the day, the way that we structure our fund enables that flexibility for people to put that Bitcoin into the ETF
Okay.
easily, because it's structured as a bear trust.
Hmm.
From that new investor flow, people that are new to the space, like, we obviously want to show them what Bitcoin really can
Bitcoin
do in their
is.
portfolio. Obviously the last couple of days we've seen sort of a dip in the price of Bitcoin, but we've still seen the net inflows happening, which is a good
Yeah.
sign. And people that are in the space for long know that Bitcoin is volatile, and how to
Yeah.
sort of like protect yourself against it out, or how to actually enhance your portfolio by harnessing the volatility.
Volatility.
But
Yeah.
it's very interesting to see how that would play out in now that it's a Bitcoin ETF in more traditional allocators portfolios.
Yeah, exactly. And in that, you touched on the education part of it. And obviously, that's what I try to do on Crypto Clarity as well. And, bring in people with that mindset that it's a technology and have a long-term overview for this. In the end, it's building slowly. It's obviously volatile, but it is something that we are seeing the future of, technology being built on. So what's your thought on that education side of things, and how is Monochrome and yourself handling that?
Yeah, so we've been operating our research division for 3 years now. The Monochrome research has a lot of content there, about 20 to 30 pieces of research materials covering things from regulation to risk to ESG to the basics of the foundations of Bitcoin
Yeah,
understanding. It's more geared towards the financial professionals, so it's a bit more mouthful.
yeah,
I think that's a good start for people who want to really get a unbiased opinion of Bitcoin, because we've wrote that stuff before we have an ETF.
yeah,
We are committed to the education, obviously, from the beginning, and I think education is important. Like, we're the only one in the market that's educating people about the different types of Bitcoin ETFs,
exactly.
while there are players that intentionally want to hide that flag effect and blur the lines between direct and indirect ETFs. And that's sad to see, but we hope that we can make it clearer, and investors have the power to make more clearer, informed choices if they have the tools to make the right informed choice to see the difference of these products. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that, always help people understand the product more. That if you have a face to it, is not just something that's being traded online, and it's not people or the bots doing it. So that's what I try to do as well on Crypto Clarity, bring you forward so that people have a face to the story, not just news article that's launched in 9 News or something.
Yeah, we do appreciate that that opportunity for sure. And FaceTime is really important for us and our clients.
Yeah,
We do a lot of offline events. Like the launch event that you've mentioned earlier. We try
yeah,
to do as much as we can, just to
exactly.
be in touch with people, and that's where you get a lot of good feedback about how things are going and what are their priorities, and then you can tweak your product to suit what the market really wants.
Yeah,
That's why, like, we pursued a no shortcut proper directly held Bitcoin ETF under the license, and I'm
yeah,
surprised we're the only one to do it, because we know that a the future of Bitcoin ETF is really it enables the financialization of Bitcoin in
yeah,
when it's in a financial product, but you cannot have financial products building on top of a Bitcoin ETF that's offered under a loophole that will eventually may or may not be closed.
yeah,
So, for example, there's two products that we've seen from other asset managers and other financial institutions offering on top of the Monochrome product now that's in the market. One is securities-backed borrowing. It's really
mm,
interesting to see that they've only allowed the Monochrome Bitcoin ETF
yeah,
to be emitted as an eligible collateral,
mm,
and also there are structured products out there that has been built on top of the Monochrome Bitcoin ETF and only the Monochrome Bitcoin ETF for the reason that it has full regulatory clarity on the
yeah,
product. The last thing you want as a operator or a financial product that has exposure to a Bitcoin ETF
yeah,
is, a regulation change comes in to close down the loophole, and then now you got to explain to your customers why you made the bad decision for picking
true.
a not so good product in the first place. You want to go for the most clear one, the most legitimate one, and the Monochrome Bitcoin ETF provides that clarity.
Exactly. And I think on that side of, things where you were touching on the area about the strategic nature of it, I want to know, like, is there a way for people to, basically put it in their pension funds, self-managed super funds, or how does that work right now? Is there any clarity in that space for Australians?
Yeah, so putting shares in a SMSF, a self-managed super fund, is very common and well understood process.
Yeah,
Bitcoin can be either put into the ETF to be converted into as ETF shares of
yeah,
the Bitcoin ETF and put in SMSF, or people traditionally just put the Bitcoin directly into SMSF. SMSF is the only type of pension funds that can realistically interact with Bitcoin in this day and age.
right now, yeah,
The industry super funds will take a bit more time. They need to let these sort of products simmer in the market for a bit, let the asset class in their eyes mature a little bit
much,
more, and also like getting the research houses to be able to rate this product because
mm,
Bitcoin is still new. We don't want to have a situation where someone that want to rate the Bitcoin ETFs have a gap of knowledge of the asset class and marks it down because of that, or worse, have prejudicial views against Bitcoin,
yeah,
and then not giving it a fair go. I mean, this is the thing that we are facing in the industry is that like we are trying our best to, legitimize the perception of Bitcoin because Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin is Bitcoin, but I think a lot of people bring their preconceived bias against Bitcoin into that.
yeah,
Fiduciary shouldn't do that, but I think it's human nature. Sometimes if you don't like something, like you don't look at it, take it seriously, and you only look at the bad side of it.
yeah,
So our mission is really educate not just the retail investors but also institutional players to really see fact from truth. That's
yeah.
why we're not participating in any of these feeder fund marketing as spot Bitcoin ETF stuff. I think that's moving us backward into the Wild West and
Yeah.
trying to bring the asset class forward. Yeah.
And I think, people, when they tell you about this kind of stuff, it's obviously get more technical about Bitcoin. But in the end, this is the stuff that is in the devil is in the detail here. So, how do you think, the institution side of things, how are they receiving this in terms of, regulations now?
Yeah. So the institutions understand that there is rules and regulation and regulatory guide that is specific to crypto ETFs, like a Bitcoin ETF. There's only one player in the market that follows that rule currently, which is the Monochrome Bitcoin ETF. So
Mm.
there is clarity in the market that there is a licensing category for crypto. Only one player is following it at the moment. Maybe there's more in the future, and that's why they're only looking at the product that we offer to build institutional products like structured products or securities-backed borrowing, or even emitting into an MDA, a managed discretionary account,
Yeah.
on their wealth platforms. And that's actually good to see. That's one of the things that, like, we would probably lose in a retail marketing voice, because the big players have much more mouth in the
Awareness, yeah.
awareness and stuff like that. They can pull that narrative of we are a Bitcoin ETF and
Yeah.
hide the fact that they are a feeder fund to their clients a little bit longer. But if you're talking about a serious player looking at this stuff, they would always open up the hood and check everything before they buy anything.
Yeah.
And that's really where I think we have seen the experience sort of turn in our favor, and
Okay.
people are actually choosing to work on our product and build on IBTC over the other products in the market, because it has full regulatory clarity on it.
Yeah, I think, and that's what you need in a product, even as someone who is a financial advisor or people who are retail investors, they would need someone to look into all these details and then make a decision based on that rather than just based on the marketing out there. No, but this I think that's it from my end. I have learned a lot about monochrome ETF, and another question that came to my mind during this was about the ETH ETF as well. So are there any possibilities of doing that, or what's going on that side of the story for monochrome now? We have seen that
Yeah, it's
in
definitely it's definitely in the works. I think ETH is still an important foundational asset in the crypto asset space. It's more technology. Bitcoin is money. Like, I see them as different type of asset
yeah,
classes. Like ETH is like Google, and Bitcoin is like gold. You don't
yeah,
compare Google and gold
an
together, but
operating system and hardware.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think an ETH ETF is an important foundational asset to be included within the financial ecosystem here in Australia. We are going to do that very soon, and I hope people support what we do. We're here to sort of like do things back, make things better for Bitcoin, make things easier for investors to interact with these asset classes. Just unfortunately, we struggle with, in Australia, we have the problem where, like, there's a lot of pretend Bitcoin ETF marketing like they're the real thing.
Yeah,
Eventually, that would go. Like, that's just unacceptable from my standpoint, where I came from what these guys was criticizing as the Wild West.
yeah,
Now I'm coming to this space and realize that what the actual Wild West is. And
yeah,
it's a bit disappointing, but the encouraging thing is that, like, we're seeing, legitimate players are looking into IBTC seriously, because it's the only product that comes with full clarity. And I
Hmm.
think that that's where we will win, like working with other institutions, working with other financial platforms and advisors and things like that. And once we see advice-led flows, it's just not the fees that fees are important, but it's
yeah,
also the structure and the regulatory situation of what these products are, because that's when someone's job is on the line if they've
yeah,
recommended people into the wrong structure without doing the proper diligence. And I think retail investors should also do more diligence, read the PDS, and really understand the nuances of these products. Because
yeah,
unfortunately, we're not in a position where we have a big voice in the media to educate the matter as much
yeah.
as we want to. But I really appreciate this opportunity to be able to talk about this today.
No, that's great. I think, we had a lot of meaningful discussions here about obviously all the scenarios, especially in Australia, and this would be an amazing value for people who are, watching this. And again, thanks for coming in, Jeff. I'll see you next time. And I think, when ETHs happen, then that's when we talk about the new stories for
Great,
yeah, Monochrome. Thanks
great.
for watching.
Thanks for having me.
All good.